It's King-KAMBUF. We back deep diving in this, the land of architecture, programming, planning, and practice. We picking up, this is part 2 of lesson 3, estimating and space needs. Programming and space needs. As previously noted, space requirements derive from the nature of facility. For example, a parking garage or a basketball pavilion requires enough space to accommodate the size of the object. An automobile or a conform to the rules of the game. In case of living or workspaces, a different method of determining space needs to employ, commonly known as numerical methods. The principles of numerical methods is the physical facility can be classified by groups called use categories, each of which requires a specific amount of space. In this section, we will look into different building types to explain the process of determining spatial needs. The candidate's needs, not memorize the specific square footages or areas shown for these building types for the ARE, but rather understand the mathematical equations that lead to the areas studied. To demonstrate this method of estimating space needs, we will examine some of the major uses categories for a college. We assume that the institution educational objectives are stated in the educational specifications. This establishes an index which expresses the amount of space required for each types of uses. The amount of space required for each use category depends on enrollment, the educational level of students in the fields of study offered. Altogether, the forms of the catchment or tributary area or which the study population is derived. The main purpose of the numerical method, therefore, is to present a logical system for calculation of space requirements. The use categories in educational facilities include classrooms, instructional libraries, laboratories, offices, research laboratories, archives, research storage, libraries, student services, etc. Some of these categories are analyzed on the following pages. Classrooms, in order to program the number and the size of instructional classes and the necessary known curriculum uses to determine the size. Number 2, instructional students, the ratio. 3, number of students. 4, number of weekly class hours use. Area students per student. The area per weekly student hour is derived from the 3 sources. Their area requires each student. The number of hours per week classroom are in use. Percentage of time each student station is occupied when the classroom is in use. The area required per student varies with the size of the space and the type of student accommodation, such as the tablet, armchair, or fixed seats in the large lecture hall, the auditorium type seating. A standard of 9 squares per student is used, whereas in the seminar room, 18 to 20 feet square per student is the nominal standard. We see, in general, the more students to be accommodated in the classroom, the smaller the assigned area for each student. Okay, let's catch this back. That's some choppy information. I'm gonna run it back so we can hear it again. The area required per student varies with the size of the space and the type of the student accommodation, such as tablet, armchairs, or fixed seating. In large lecture rooms with aquarium type seating, A standard of 9 square feet per student is used, whereas in seminar rooms 8 to 20 square feet per student is the normal standard. In general, the more students to accommodate in a classroom, the smaller the assigned area for each student. The conventional classroom, 15 to 20 square feet, is the standard student station. The number of hours per week during which classrooms are used in a matter of the educational policy of the school to ensure the maximum utilization of space. Some schools use a standard that specifies the number of hours per week classrooms used must be used, such as the common use standard of 30 hours per week. The percentage of time each student is occupied when the classroom is in use depends on the educational program. However, a 60% station utilization is standard. The method of computing is indexed using the factors which indicates the number of square feet per weekly student hour is as follows. Square foot per student station equals 15 hours per week. Classroom use equals 30% of time each student is stationed is occupied when the classroom is in use equals 60%. Index equals 15 divided by 30 times 60% equals 0.833. The index of 0.833 indicates the amount of instructional space in square feet per weekly student hour that is needed for the educational program. This index can be applied as follows. Assume that 1,000 sociology students each spend 6 hours in a lecture per week. Therefore, they generate 6,000 weekly student hours. The result is multiplied by the index 0.833 to determine the actual instructional space that must be provided. Thus, the space needs be programmed total 5,000 net square feet. 6,000 times 0.833 equals 5,000. This does not consider the number of size of classrooms. These are determined on the basis of the class type, the number of students per class. The following example illustrates this point. The school has 1,000 sociology students, and on the basis of each attendance, 6 hours of lectures per week, 5,000 net square feet of educational space is needed. This net area is divided into a number of smaller instructional spaces determined by the seating arrangements as follows. 5 classrooms for 20 students, each at 300 square feet equals 1,500 square feet. 2 lecture halls for 150 students, each at 1,350 square feet equals 2,700 square feet. 8 seminar rooms for 5 students, each at 100 square feet equals 800 square feet. Total area 5,000 square feet. The building area for such an activity has an efficiency of 60%. Therefore, they obtain the gross square footage. We divide the net area by 60%, or 5,000 by 0.60 equals 8,033 gross square feet, which is the total building area required to accommodate the 1,000 sociology students in this particular program. Laboratories. Estimating the space needed for instructional laboratories illustrates the similarities as well as the differences between the requirements of these more complex spaces and those of the basic lecture rooms. The instructional laboratory space usually contains equipment arranged so that it is used to restrict a particular field of study. Thus, is the more possession specialized space, serving a smaller segment of students' population than the general classroom, and having a different relationship to the total space program. The method of computing the numeric index and instructional laboratory space in the same of classrooms, weekly student hours in instructional laboratories, and the area weekly student hours. However, unlikely classrooms are area required per weekly student hours in instructional laboratories varies depending on the field of study. In addition to the areas of the stations occupied by the students in the laboratory, additional space is required for the storage rooms, for preparation rooms, balance rooms, animal holding quarters. Their total areas or stations, including these auxiliaries or supported spaces, by vary from 15 to 160 square feet per student. For example, a student station in the instructional chemistry laboratory may require 50 square feet, but an additional 18 square feet may be required for the auxiliary space in the drafting room. By contrast, only 32 square feet per student may be needed for teaching space, the auxiliary space combined. Laboratory and the other specialized classrooms are normally used for fewer hours per week than the classroom. Therefore, most schools have adopted standards for instructional laboratories based on the 20 to 25 hours per week, with 80% student station utilization. As the instructions let you suppose that the laboratory is used 20 hours per week and requires 60 square feet per student stations. Thus, the area per week students hours is 4.25 square feet. 68 divided by 20 times 0.80 equals 4.25. Using 24 rather than 20 hours per week with 80% utilization, the square feet hours per week per student hour is reduced to 4.25 to 3.54. Thus, it is evident that space requirements are greatly affected by schedule and utilization. Furthermore, when the spaces for instructional laboratories and classrooms are compared, it is apparent for the former requires for 2 or 10 times the amount per hour of the student stations. Libraries. The following space programmings. The space needed for libraries illustrates still another method of calculation. Libraries include space for book storage, circulation, and the use of books, peripherals, manuscripts, and other reading materials. Library spaces can be subdivided into 3 categories: stack space, reader space, and service space. The amount of stack space, book storage, space derives from the number of volumes of periodicals in the collection. The space required usually planned so that each shelf is filled to about 75% capacity. This avoids the recalculation of books when the collection decreases under the conditions. The floor space for the stack collections includes shelving, access aisles, and cross circulation. It's calculated on the basis of 0.1 square feet per bound volume, or put another way, 1 square foot accommodates 10 bound volumes. However, as total collections increase, the need for access aisles and circulation space in the stack area decreases, and the shelving holds some of the least books can be filled to the greater capacity. Some recommend standards for stacking or collection spaces in typical libraries are shown in table 3.3. Oh, I see it right there. Ha 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 ha. Materials other than books that are stored in libraries also require stacked space. Space should be provided in these materials on the equivalent basis. Some examples: 15 pamphlets are equal to the width of one bound volume. The equivalency factor widely used are shown in table 3.2. Okay, library equivalency factors. Types of materials roughly classified. Pamphlets. The unit is an item. Conversion ratio to inbound volumes is 15:1. Music scores and parts, 15:1. Sound recording records, 6:1. Microfilms and reels, 4:1. Maps, 9:1. Archive material stored in cubic feet, 1:15 is the ratio. And if we look at table 3.3, numbers of volumes and net square feet of the floor space. First, 150 is 0.1. Second, 150,000 volumes is 0.09. Next, 300,000 volumes is 0.08. Over 600,000 volumes is 0.07. So you can see the area of reading room space in institutional libraries is based upon total enrollment. In many instances, such as in community colleges, the standard area is 30 square feet per reading station, with a capacity for 25% of the student body. These standards are adequate for the undergraduate reading room space. However, in graduate programs, space is needed for study carriers or well as individual stations for both graduate students and for faculty. The demand for this type of space varies with the field of study. The fields that study that do not require laboratory research space requires more carrier space. Based on these conditions, following standards are used to determine reading room space. 7.5 square feet. Undergraduate students begin. Graduate students are advanced graduate students in fields of study with low research requirements. 15 square feet per advanced graduate students in fields of study where high research requirements or teaching or research facilities and departments have low research requirements. 30 square feet per teaching and research faculty and departments having high research requirements. Okay. Faculty engaged in administration and counseling do not generate library reading space, nor non-academic employees. Library services. Library services space includes both technical services and public services areas. It also includes office and workrooms, areas for administration, acquisitions, and categorying of volumes, which is approximately 25% of the reader space. Thus, a school that does not have a research program and which comprises 4,000 undergraduate students, 800 graduate students, 250 faculty, serving a total collection of 400,000 volumes, generating a total net usable area. Calculate the area needed for circulation, mechanicals, custodial, and general space must be added to the net area. Determine that the required building area, if the building is to be 80% efficient, the gross building area would be 86,188 divided by 0.8 equals 107,735 gross feet. On the basis of these standards, the program can be developed which meets the requirements of the institution for the required library space. The procedures of the estimated space needs to be programmed. Classrooms, instructions, and laboratories and library space illustrates the numeric method. These methodologies can be applied to many other types of facilities, providing that the basic standards are available and reliable. So let's go to retail sales space. Retail sales space. The space needs of retail sales are direct related to the potential sales expressed in a dollar square per foot per leasable area. These yields are profit to those who own the lease in the space. The revenue generated by the retail sales is directly related to the number of customers. The greater the number of shoppers, the greater the sales the volume will be. There are, of course, certain limiting factors. For example, the optimal travel time for convenient shopping is considerably less than the specifically shopping for. May be helpful to consider market study research based on populational trends, purchasing power, competition, and development costs. There has been to determine the feasibility of establishing various types of shopping centers and areas, well as establish estimates in the amount of retail space. Space can be supported by the community. These three types of shopping centers will be considered here: the neighborhood center, community center, and the regional center. Each type of shopping center depends for its support and existence on the population located within a specific radius of the center. This is referred to by several terms: the market area, the trade area, the tributary area, or the catchment area. Each term refers to the population of shoppers who can expect to be the shopping center. The Urban Land Institute defines the three basic types of centers as follows: the neighborhood center. The neighborhood center provides convenience goods and personal services for every need, such as food, pharmaceuticals, automobile service, sundries. It is often built around a supermarket or drugstores. The services 75,000 to 20,000 people within a 6-minute driving radius, as well as walk-in shoppers. The building area ranges in size from 30,000 to 75,000 square feet and averages 40,000 square feet. The neighborhood center occupies a site area of 4 to 10 acres. The community center, in addition, the convenience goods and personal services provides for sales and soft goods, clothing, towels, and hard goods, hardware, appliances. It adds depth to merchandise available in the neighborhood centers and adds variety in sizes, styles, color, prices, as well as community centers often have. The major 10 variety stores are junior department stores. In addition to supermarkets, it serves 20,000 to 100,000 people, and it ranges in size from 100 to 300,000 square feet, 150 square feet being average. As for the site area, community center needs about 10 to 30 acres or more. It is not possible to analyze the market area of the type of center with any degree of certainty, simply because shoppers have such a wide choice of centers available and they are highly competitive with each other. Additionally, shoppers are no predictable in the selection of clothes and appliances. There is much greater predictability in the habits of shoppers for daily convenient needs. The regional center provides general merchandise, apparel, furniture, and home furnishings. It is built around one or more major department stores, which increase shoppers' attraction in size. The average building area is 400,000 square feet. The range is from 300,000 to 1,000,000 square feet or more. The regional centers requires a tributary population of at least 100,000 to 250,000 people. It offers shoppers goods in great depths of variety, and it has large capacity for comparative shopping with it. Another desirable factor is that its accessibility includes the convenience of a large parking area. The regional center has come to replace the facilities once available only to and in the downtown areas of large cities. The market areas is the primary determinant of this type and size of shopping center that can be supported. This translates into two factors: population and density. Thus, the high density urban areas composed of apartment buildings can be provided in populations of shoppers within a smaller radius that can a single family suburban area. Certainly, certain assumptions can be made based on figures developed by the Urban Land Institution. A neighborhood center can expect a population of 750 people to support 30,000 square feet of retail still space area, 4 square feet per person. The community center can expect 20,000 to 100,000 people to support 100,000 to 300,000 square feet of retail sales area, or 3 to 5 square feet per person. The regional center can be supported by 100 to 250,000 people, generating 300 to a million square feet, or 4 to 5 square feet per person. Thus, although the total size of each center varies, the amount of sales area that can be supported in each of these three categories is roughly the same. There are 5 square feet per person. There are, of course, several additional variables that come into play. Among these competing facilities, population change and growth, change in population characteristics, and change in attitudes towards shopping. However, factors such as these are generally stable in short run and change over the long haul over a period of time. Therefore, it is possible to use assumptions to make relevant programming decisions. The following examples demonstrate one of these methods of the estimating retail sales space using the accommodating criteria. The catchment area for a proposed shopping center comprises of densely populated urban areas of 1,440 acres with a population density of 50 persons per acre. The volume of sales requires to produce a profit is determined to $72 per square feet is a leasable area, assuming that the personal consuming expenditures within the catchment area averages $288 per person. This is the maximum gross leasable area the catchment can support. The solution: total population equals 1,440 acres times 50 persons per acre equals 72,000 persons. Total sales volume: 72,000 persons times $288 per person equals 20,736,000. Maximum gross leasable area equals 20,736,000 divided by 72 square feet of sales equals 288,000 gross square feet. The maximum gross leasable area the catchment area can support, therefore, is 288,000 square feet. From the example, we can see that the criteria for determining space needs is different. Building types depends on the building purpose of functional. In the case of a school, the nominal desired standard for the classroom is 30 students per classroom. However, several budget constraints may compel or reduce reduction in the number of classrooms in the building program. This might suggest an extension of the teaching schedule rather than the overcrowding of the classroom. A commercial enterprise, however, whose purpose is to provide investors income as well as customer service, estimates its space needs on the basis of maximum return on the initial investment and subsequent operating expenses. However, the two buildings types are similar and the space needed are generated by people, specifically the number of people within it catchment area making up the user population. Furthermore, Therefore, the criteria of the individual spaces needed are based on exception standards, whereas the total space needed for the related and the total numbers of users in the geographical area being served. Example projects and programs. Introduction. All right. If you ain't knowing, this is King-KAMBUF, 100 proof, bringing you nothing but the truth. And yeah, we've been deep diving in the land of architecture. We're about to conclude lesson 3, programming and space needs. Maybe one more or two more verses here. Let's go. Example project program, the introduction. The following is an example of a program and building project. The purpose is to demonstrate the program exercise and practice. Although there is alternative methods for developing a program, the basic process is applicable to other types of facilities. Example project, a building for a college, a law and state university. A study prepared by an authority in the field of legal education recommends establishing a law school at a major state university that would serve 300 full-time students. The study recommends a study designed for discussion type seminars, teachings with both large and intermediate spaces. Size spaces also include will be number of small rooms for seminars. There must be provisions for a practice court that can also be used for large public lectures and meetings of the student bars, associations. Offices spaces should be provided for faculty and staff, in addition to spaces for various organizations and characteristics and activity student bodies. The law building must convey a sense of appropriate purpose to generate acceptable on the part of the professional and the community. The library will serve the research demands of the law school for faculty, the university, faculty, and the student body. This implies library of 100,000 volumes of outset, with the goal within the first decade of the 150,000 volume library of faculty student ratio of 1 to 15 is contemplated, in addition to the administrative faculty of 5 deans, 2 directors, and the clerical staff, and total number of professional law staff will range between 19 to 21. Enrollment will be commenced with an entering class of 70 to 90 students, which will grow by third year to students populations of 250 to 300 students. Subsequent to the preparation of the original feasibility student study, the dean is appointed. Additional programmatic ideas are then developed. It follows the dean stresses the while the building primarily functions to serve as the center for legal education and legal communication community. Many must have access to our resources. The moat court facilitates must be large enough to accommodate half of the entire enrollment. In addition to the many 30 additional participants or visitors, researcher space is not required in the initial increment of the development, but expansions for this function, as well as library offices as teachers spaces, much as provided. Students will require a common space for a lounge, as well as individual full-length locker space for books and various other materials. Offices and workspace workrooms must be provided for student populations. The additional amount of space and 5% of the total office and research space should be provided for archives and research equipment storages. And then The dean recommends that since the structure will be adjacent to the existing education and life science buildings, it should be architecturally harmonious with them. Existing trees and rock outcroppings are to be incorporated into the site where it is possible. Services, access, and parking for 25 cars must also be provided. The dean also emphasizes the economy and denotes architectural simplicity and clarity, which defines not only construction costs but also the visual harmony of the project for the function of the new law building. Over time, the dean points out the building as well as the campus must be able to accommodate growth. Therefore, must be clear visual harmony and each stage of development. At each point of the program development, the essential elements have been established, and now it's necessary to identify the space needs and the number of sizes of spaces, their characteristics, physicals, and shit, and the functional relationship. The following space needs identified basis and recommendations and feasibility studies, the client's additional programmatic ideas. So let's take a deep dive. Here we go. Classroom, 300 students, each attending class an average of 17 hours per week and generates 5,100 weekly student contract hours. Standards indicated the average student station size up to require 16.5 net usable square feet. NSF, the classroom index, the 0.92 NF per weekly student contact hours, WCSCH. Therefore, the 5,000 WSCH times 0.92 NSF equals 4692. Office space, facilities, office standards require 150 square feet. NSF, each allowing the additional storage and research space. Deans and directors' offices adjoining secretarial spaces require 500 net square feet, and there are 20 faculty, 150 NSF equals 3,000 NSF. 5 deans and directors at 500 NSF equals 2,500 NSF, totaling 5,500 NSF. Research space, none of this time. Research archive storage, 5%. The total office and research space, 5% of 5,500 equals 275. Library space, current standards for the law library suggest the following criteria. Collections of 0.18 NSF volumes for the first 150 volumes, 0.16 volumes for second volumes of 150, 14.14 NSF volumes per 300 volumes. Reader space, 50% of enrollment requirements, 30 NSF of each. Service space, 25% of total reader space. Therefore, space needed are as follows: 100 volumes times 0.18 NSF volumes equals 18,000 square feet. 50 of 300 student readers times 30 NSF equals 4,500 NSF. 25% of 4,500 NSF reader space equals 1,125 NSF. Subtotal 23,625 NSF. Common space, a lounge at 2.5 NSF equals 750 NSF. Lockers at 4.75 NSF equals 1425 equals 2175. Moat courtroom, 300 students times 50% time plus 30 times 12.5 NSF, 2250 NSF. Law journal space, 2 NSF students equals 600 NSF. Support facility, 10%. A classroom space, 10% times 4692 equals 470. NSF. Oh my goodness, I just gotta go fucking blank and turn into a computer when I be getting into all these normal numbers and formulas because oh my goodness, I be trying to overthink it and then I be getting lost in it. But if I just blank out and let my brain claim out and calculate out, all that stuff just seems to come forth. And it's like a rush, a maze, of course. I don't know, it's like the best. I just know all the numbers just fall into place. Anyways, the space needs are further refined in the order to define space sizes, capacities, and functional relations. This information is first presented as a tabular summary of space, which identifies each space activities and numbers and users and the individuals and the total square feet areas, resulting program summaries of the collage of law buildings. The summary sheet is prepared for each space containing in the program summary to furnish information, reading, purposes, functions, activities, spatial relationships, spatial considerations, and notes. On these, one of these sheets developed for the lecture hall is presented. Purposes: facilitate, functions, to provide an area for the lectures to demonstrate for up to 100 students of secondary functions will be met in the special events. Activities: faculties will lectures and give demonstrations, frontal projections on films and studies. Students will listen, view projected images, and take notes. Carts and equipment will be moved in and out the space. General meetings of facilities of students. Spatial relationships: easy access from the facility offices, classrooms and building entrances, adjacent and with a direct access to preparation, storage, and circulations. Special considerations: students must be able to enter and be seated without passing the demonstration area. Access must be such as the equipment can be moved into the demonstration area from the preparation area. Seating will be upholstered, fixed to the floor, and have tablet arms. Control of audio visual equipment at lecture stations and projection areas. Provisions must be made for 3 ceiling mounted viewing screenings for simultaneous projection of 3 images. Illumination must be regulated at lecture stations and projection areas provided. Enclosed frontal projection areas at near the lecture hall. Notes: fenestration undesirable, carpet desirable, sound amplification systems and microphones, ceiling mounts for TV monitors, graphic representations. Once the individual summary sheet are compiled, the spatial relationship diagrams are prepared for the client owner's reviews. These are illustrates and figures distinctions between programmatic designs and schematic design studies. It tends the former intricates indicates functions and spatial notations, while later explores possible spatial arrangements as the basis for architectural design. To the extent that the architect can communicate area relationships through the use of these diagrams, and the extent that the owner can discern their intentions, the project is able to proceed to the design phase. In these diagrams, the architect involves defining drawings by delineating spaces, dimensions, and building openings. The result is a series of schematic design drawings founded on the realistic building program. The summary: we have used the preceding examples to illustrate the values and the methodology of the programming every new building must have. Programs just has a plan and specifications. It is an essential step in the creation of the good building, and with the good program, owner, client, users, and architects are better served. This is KING-KAMBUF, 100 proof. bringing you nothing but the truth. This is architecture, and we just concluded lesson number 3, programming and space needs. When we return, we'll be deep diving into lesson number 4, building prototypes. This is KING-KAMBUF, 100 proof, bringing you nothing but the truth. Ah man, KAMBUF.